Alright, welcome everyone to round 8 of the Trackstars Formula 2 Championship. We are live all the way over from Italy, so we're in Belgium last weekend, so we've chucked all the cars on some transporters and shipped them all the way over to Italy, so we're moving around all over the world, as obviously the calendar states, but as always, joined with me in the combox is my good old fellow Mr. Spudley. Welcome.
G'day DJ, g'day everyone. Yes, as you said, we have made it to the beautiful Italy, where we are celebrating one of the fastest tracks on the calendar this evening, where we will see cars exceeding speed limits around over 280, 290 kilometers down the main straight. So we're expecting a fast race this evening. We've got 15 of our best drivers here this evening, as we've had 5 come through pre-qualifying. But the track is located in the north of Italy, only 53 kilometers away from Switzerland. West is Turin, and before it hits the French borders, and then that's where we're going to be heading up into round 9 the following Sunday in French for the French Grand Prix at St. Croix. South is Genoa, which shows off its coastal views, which is with its picturesque scenery of the Ligurian Sea, and with only about 200 plus kilometers away from Maranello, east of Maranello. So plenty of heritage here for the Tifosi fans. Who is the Tifosi going to cheer on this evening, DJ? Who have we got for our winner, or who's going to take pole position with your Monopoly money?
My Monopoly money would like to be on Lunacy, but as we've seen through pre-qualifying, we had Ando zoom through the pack at front as expected, because obviously we know how fast Ando is, but in practice, Lunacy wasn't exactly that fast. So I'd like to try and see him a little bit further up the grid, but there's kind of no guarantees here. But as we know, Monza is a war of track limits. So you push that car a little bit too much, you cop a track limit penalty, and you'll see yourself copping half a second penalty. Cross the pit exit line, you'll cop 3 seconds. So it's a very long pit exit line. Got to be careful coming into turn 1 there, because you got to shove yourself over to the left hand side of the track, hard on the brakes in for that hard right hander, but also watching for traffic coming up the main straight. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one come to the race and the pit stop, stuff like that. Obviously no safety cars in F2, so it will strategy come into play, obviously with these guys having the racing mediums and racing softs being the mandatory tyre for a certain amount of minimum laps. They must use that tyre for a minimum amount of laps. So it's definitely going to be a spicy one, I think, being such a high speed circuit.
Well, hence why it's got the nickname the Temple of Speed, where we've seen drivers in Formula 1 exceeding over 370 kilometers back in its FV10 era in the mid 2000s, and then even when we hit the V8s, they were hitting speeds off about 340 kilometers, and even now with its hybrid era, we're hitting about 350. I think that was 2014 by the Mercedes boys and Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg hitting over 350 kilometers down that main straight. So it's pretty incredible to see how evolution comes by with the cars, especially with the V6 hybrid era. But obviously with these cars here, with our Dallara SF19s, the V6 turbo, powering, rumbling down through the main straights, we see Rusty Nuts from Robo Sport Racing crossing the line to do the first lap as he approaches the Retivilio chicane here. It's a very tricky sequence. It's a right-left sequence of chicanes here, but he gets it nice and excellently executed that. And then as we come through into the Curva Grande, and then it's a nice, you want to try and hug that inside line as much as you can. Try and make sure you set yourself right on the right-hand side of the track before we hit the Della Roggia corners, or chicane rather. Try and cut that inside, don't take too much sausage curve on the outside. And then coming through to the first Lesmo, turn 4 of the first Lesmo here at Monza. Take it nice and entry, use as much exit as you can. Too much power, you go spinning into that barrier on the right hand side. The second Lesmo corners, don't take too much exit, otherwise there's a gravel trap, call your name. And then as we go swooping past the bridge, which is where we see the old banking of the old Monza circuit, and then coming through to Ascari, try and take as much as that inside curve, and as he starts to drift a little bit wide, it's a left, right, left, chicane, Ascari is, and then you got yourself a little bit of a break, DJ, as you start to think about how you're going to execute Parabolica Turn A, where you can see further up the distance, you can see the banking from the olden days, from the 1950s of Monza, whereas that famous banking didn't take that corner too well, but as he gets across the line, try and take as much of that right-hand side as he can to make your time sure, and he set himself a 1:39.2 to set the benchmark, DJ.
Yeah, there's a 1:31.2 there, so not too bad of a lap there from Rusty Nuts, as Roses, Dean the Bean, they all start coming across the line, setting some laps, getting their head around as Ando comes in and flies that pace away with a 30.3. But as we do that, you saw it on the onboard, but now we'll jump over to a track layout, so you guys can see kind of where Monza's located. Obviously done by the fantastic It's Racing, who's still over in America, so it's very appreciative from It's Racing to put this on for us, and then I just chuck it on stream, so we'll chuck that on now.
So there's a beautiful track map of Monza, the city of Monza, where north of the city is this permanent fixture that is Autodromo Nazionale Monza, where they're coming up, as we said, into turn one. The circuit starts with a long run on the start-finish straight, about 1.2 kilometers exactly to get to the Variante de Retifiglio, a slow right-left chicane which leads directly to the Curva Grande. Like I said, basically trying to get as much of that right-hand side as you can, and then as soon as you get under the bridge here, braking is going to be very hard to get for our drivers this evening, as there's a lot of shadows before they get into the Della Roggia chicane, and they want to try and make sure they can execute that without going too deep into the braking zone and missing their chicanes. But through Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2, as we said, there are gravel traps there, and once you get onto that gravel trap, it'll spin you around 360 known scopes onto the right-hand side of the barriers. But as this track map shows, there is the old banking there going under the bridge, and on top of that is the old Le Mans, is where the old Monza banking is from the 1950s onwards. Actually was designed in 1922, DJ. So Monza's been has pretty much been a fan favorite with the track. Formula One fanatics love this track, and even GT drivers love it, and WEC. But as he's coming through the Parabolica right now, a little bit of tarmac there, but then on the end of that is where we saw a horrific incident for 2019, where we saw F3's Alex Peroni mount those sausage curves and go flying over the barrier. And that's where we also saw Charles Leclerc in 2020, where he went smashing through into the tyre barrier, where famously enough is where Pierre Gasly in 2021 for AlphaTauri, and last year was won by our own Daniel Ricciardo for McLaren Renault. So we've got some big names and some surprise winners in the past two Grand Prix. So will we see a surprise winner this evening, DJ?
I'd like to say we'd see a surprise winner, because obviously we've had Ando come through pre-qualifying the last 2 weekends, but he has either had a dropout or his game's glitched out and something like that. But as we see him come through Ascari, there he cops up 1 second penalty trying to follow fly boarding there. But they've got 3 minutes 50 to go, so they'll have about another 2, maybe 3 laps, depending on where they cross the line compared to their time. So we'll keep a close eye on who's where. But at the moment, we've got Ando 787 with a 1 minute 30.3. Currently in position 1, Nightwalker 964 for the WRT guys. Also our It's Racing reserve in P2 with a 130.7. So he's 4/10 off the pace, but come to the race, there's anything's possible. You make one little tiny mistake, you go a bit too deep into turn 1, and you're see you later, you're going to get reset. So anything can happen here, and obviously we've seen Lunacy pushed the car a little bit too hard previously. He was actually down here in 9th place with a 131.6, so it's a little bit off the pace. Maybe he might be running a bit too much downforce for this track, as we know. Obviously yourself saw him at Monza have a lot of downforce, get Ando through the corners, but on the straight Ando just pulled away. So that also comes into play with suspension setup, aero setup, how it's going to be, as some drivers are picking up some penalties here, which is a bit unfortunate to see, but that's Monza for you.
Exactly right, but we see some drivers there. Cylon 96 has just moved himself up into second place, second in the championship, where he wants to try and make sure he gets over his rival in Lunacy, but Lunacy's down in P9, so could this be the race where we see a resurgence of Cylon 96 pace, where he might be able to make a challenging fight for Lunacy's championship, but Lunacy's got himself a comfortable margin over Xylon 96. I believe it's over 160 points between those two drivers, so it's a big margin for Lunacy has over Xylon 96, but we haven't had any drop rounds play in effect, DJ, so come the end of round 10, who knows what the championship order could be. Could it be Xylon in the lead, or could it be Lunacy? Time will tell, but so far Xylon's got the edge over his rival.
Yeah, it's definitely been a good championship so far, having Lunacy jump in this season. He's been kind of very fast out of the box. He hasn't really dropped down overly much and anything like that, so it's good to see 2 to 3 drivers. Obviously we've got Dargs as well fighting for the championship. He's a little bit further back, obviously having some couple of bad races, and I think
he missed the last race as well.
It was a no-show last race, so it's a bit unfortunate there, but we'll just wait to see what Dargs can do here. So it's Ando currently P1 here by 0.070, so that's, as I say,
and Xylon's gone to the top there. What a beautiful lap there by Xylon 96 for the 23 Ultrapack Mashbuds Racing, who will also be making his return to the main series this evening. So that'll give him a lot of confidence heading on to the main race later on in a few minutes' time there. But wow, good time there by Xylon 96, and just to get it just as qualifying is about to end.
Yeah,
as we see some honourable mentions there. We see Roses up into 3rd place, or I think will be 4th as when Xylon passes Sector 1. Slappers is going to be in 5th, Dargs in 6th, Rusty in 7th, who was an automatic qualifier, obviously getting 2nd place in Spa, and he was the driver outside of the top 8, and he managed to get himself an automatic qualification. But as we get your guys wrapped up for their qualifying in Split 2, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do have our Split 2 finally returning for the Trackstars Formula 2. We have Warpath 360 taking pole position ahead of his teammate in Gordok 69 and Venti SS Gaming in the top 3 there. So we have 2 ITS Racing drivers in Split 2, DJ, so hopefully you're giving them a good tune, so that way one of those drivers can get a victory later on as we get that race underway.
Yeah, hopefully we can see him come through the field and see if we can get Venti to get a bit of a dub there, or Your Nobly Watt to get a dub as well, to get a automatic entry into next week. So we'll definitely have to wait and see how that plays out, but it's going to be very interesting, obviously having a Split 2, since obviously we haven't had one since round 3. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and I'll give honourable mention here to Isuzu Brian. He's come through pre-qualifying too, so he's currently sitting in 6th place, because I do see, okay, Lunacy is the only one there, but where's Xylon? So Xylon's coming round, you go through Sector 1, go to the top, yep, there it is. So
yeah, so it's very good drive there by Isuzu Brian, who's have been a little bit of lacking confidence when it comes to getting through the pre-qualifyings, and obviously having not being the fastest in the previous tracks. But obviously something around here at Monza, and for Brian, obviously it's working wonders for him, because he's in the top 8, and with that pre-qualifying, was mentioning off the air that he only probably did about 15 minutes of pre-qualifying and managed to get himself a 30.2 to seal 2nd in pre-qualifying. So obviously form is on Brian's side, so we may see a surprise from Isuzu Brian tonight.
Yeah, just in a practice of it before we did go live, he did say that his qualifying pace isn't really up to scratch. He's definitely a favoured racer, so his race pace is a lot more consistent. So I wonder if that consistency will come into play there, and he might be able to go through the field and possibly snatch 1 or 2 positions off the start or anything like that. So we'll definitely wait for one to see. As Rugworth jumped into the pits here, I'm not too sure why, because the timer has run out, my friend. So just wait for Rugworth to cross here. I think they're blocking the track. Yeah, they're blocking the track anyway, so we won't really have anywhere else to go.
That's all good. Yeah, just setting these guys up for the Split 2 race to commence. But so far, as I've said, no one's been able to challenge Warpath to getting pole position. So it's very top job for Warpath to get pole position in Split 2. So can he convert that to a race win? Only time will tell when these guys get their race underway. But obviously a surprise name that we see in Split 2, Gordok 69, DJ. Obviously we saw Gordok in Split 1 over the past few rounds. Obviously not having a Split 2, but his pace has been pretty good, and unfortunately for him, he didn't even make it into past Split 2. So a little bit of lacking of the pace for Gordok 69. So hopefully he might be able to get himself a great result and maybe get himself back to where he belongs in Split 1.
Yeah, I think I noticed as well, a lot of the drivers are kind of really main, like corners, stuff like that, like obviously tracks with not so many straights, tuning wise, obviously because these guys have tuning. They may have tuned their car possibly a little bit wrong, that they don't get top speed down the straight, which obviously you know as well as I do. If you don't have top speed down here, it's definitely going to be a back step for a lot of these drivers, as these drivers are being a very big pain in my bum and keep going back to the pits.
I think even when they get back into the pits, I think it should put them in their spot already. So, but as I'm giving my Split 2 guys a bit of a heads up, a bit of an early start as they get their 5 lights ready. Warpath and Gordok on the front row. Hopefully it's a clean start for our drivers. Yes, it is lights out for those guys. No dramas whatsoever. Just going to keep an eye on quickly just to see if there are no incidents going into Turn 1. Because obviously we know, DJ, Turn 1 at Monza can be a little bit hectic, as I see Gordok 69 go for a massive dive bomb, but it pays off him, and Tormento goes 360 as he gets tagged by the It's Racing drivers in Venti and Gator. So something that Tormento did not want to have. That was a poor start for him, obviously getting collected by those It's drivers, and that's obviously a very common thing for those drivers to do anyway. But Gordok 69 leads the way ahead of Warpath, Venti and Gator in the top 4. But leading on to our main attraction, ladies and gentlemen, we have the main Formula 2 track stars. Formula 2 with Cylon 96, Ando in the front row, Roses, and Nightwalker behind as we wait for those 5 lights. And it's lights out, green flag racing. Xylon's got himself a good start. Ando's going to go right onto the inside there. Roses is going to be right behind Xylon. He's trying to make 3 wide. But going into Turn 1, DJ, we know this can be chaotic as we look for our drivers to be patient when it comes to the braking, and so far someone's gone round, so I'm not so sure what that is. Oh, there's a lot of chaos here, and looks like I think everyone's just held their own, and Lunacy's all the way down into 11th, DJ, so not the start that Lunacy wanted, and that's obviously comes with the poor qualifying.
Yeah, that poor qualifying can put you mid-pack, and mid-pack is where you definitely don't want to be at Monza for Turn 1, so that's a bit unfortunate there. But also slappers. Oh, someone's gone flying off into the Looks
like Slappers mate 117 has gone for an excursion there, and he's just gone from bad to worse. The 6th place driver in the championship, he's been showing some great form, and a win at the Nürburgring Grand Prix. Still can't get his tyres switched on, and he's down all the way back, at least 12 seconds behind Dean Tabine, who is a new driver in our main split of Formula 2. But as we look back up to the front, we still have Xylon ahead of Ando 787 with Roses in 3rd place. So the top 3 hasn't changed from the start of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one so far. But as we jump back to the front here, we've got Xylon still out in 1st. He's starting to pull away very slightly for Ando, but Ando is in that slip. So we'll wait and see how crucial Ando's slipstream is here. It's only going down. It's going down by the 2100, so it's not not as lethal as what I thought it would be.
So 308 kilometers on Ando's WTCC entry as Roses goes a little bit too deep, just trying to avoid tagging the back end of Ando's rear wing. But we see Nightwalker in 4th, Dargs up into 5th after moving up a few positions there at the start. So good start for Dargs, but the top 5 is definitely running away from Rusty Nuts. They've put themselves about a 2.5 second gap, and he's about 5 seconds away from the lead there as he's got Rugworth and Aussie Hypnotic there. So a very solid start for Rugworth up into 7th place there. He's been a little bit struggling these past few rounds, but 7th place for so far. I don't want to call it jinx already, but it's a good start for Rugworth, holding up Aussie in 8th place. Lunacy is back up into 9th place where he started the race. So not a great start for Lunacy, but obviously that mid-pack racing is not helping him out, not helping his cause whatsoever. But now we see a change for the lead, DJ. We've got Cylon and Ando 787 duking it out there. They're side by side going to Ascari corner, and Cylon is still ahead in first place with Ando in second. Still, Rose is lurking behind there, but looks like Ando's got a little bit more pace in his car, DJ. Obviously, maybe a lower downforce compared to Xylon, as we see Xylon just getting ever reeled in by Ando coming into Parabolic. A bit of smoke there, so maybe a bit of contact amongst those drivers. But so far, the 23 takes is still in the lead over the 787.
Yeah, that was very close there, but it looks like Xylon's got his a low downforce setup, because Ando isn't gaining as much time as what I thought he would in the slip, so Zola may have that thing sacked to the ground, no downforce. Oh, as Roses goes up the inside here, Ando Nightwalker makes it too wide. Oh my lord!
Oh, as we see some contact between the WRT and the ISO racing driver, we've got Roses, Nightwalker, and even Dark 74 there. Look at these guys, teacher. They're separated by about 1.7 seconds there, so this is great racing. The top 5 pulling away from Rusty Nuts there, and this is going to become a very crucial when it comes to that pit stop strategy there.
Yeah, as we know, obviously, who's this? Roses. He's dropped down to 5th, so he's made a big mistake there.
Oh no!
Dropped all the way down to 5th, so I wonder. He doesn't have damage, so I don't think he may have had any contact from the rear. So it may have just been a bit of too deep under brakes, hit the ripple strip and send it off into the dirt. So the other thing we need to put out as well. Xylon is also on the mediums, Ando's on the soft, same as Nightwalker and Dark. So
okay.
That's also maybe coming into play here. So Xylon might be looking to run that the long stint on the mediums, keep that track position there, go into a late pit stop, run the minimum laps on the soft tyre as minimum as he can, because obviously we know being 4 times in Monza, even though it is a circuit with some long straights, the tyre wear is extremely high. So
I was exactly about to say that, DJ. The tyre wear on this track here is massive. So obviously Xylon going with a harder compound over Ando 787, and this is frustrating Ando and Nightwalker. So probably this is the reason why there is a big train amongst these drivers here, because now we know that Xylon is on the medium tyres while everyone else is on the soft. So Xylon's doing an excellent job there to be in first place. Lap 4 of 17, we have Xylon in the lead, Ando 787 in second, Nightwalker in third, Dargs in fourth. Roses, after a mistake from the previous lap, is only about 2.3 seconds behind Dargs there, so he's got a bit of work to try and catch up to Dargs, with Rusty back in the top 8 now, so obviously he's made up some positions there, as we see Rugworth drop off the pack and about in 9th place. Returning Robbo Sport actually, DJ, in 10th place there, so good to see our fellow series manager in Robbo making a surprise, another return for the Formula 2 series, with Soul Reaper in 11th. We've got Flyboarding in 12th, and then we have our new driver in D. Devine in 13th with Isuzu Brian. So obviously his race pace hasn't gone well here. So qualifying was one thing, but race pace hasn't worked for Isuzu. And then we have Slappers back in 15th place. But if we look back up to the front now, we have Ando now actually taking the lead of Xylon 96, so he must have taken it at Ascari DJ, and now he's going to try and see if he can pull away, using as much overtake, setting the fastest lap there. So Xylon's going to be right on his tail there. He doesn't want to lose sight of him, because those softs, like you said, will wear, and they will wear very fast.
Yeah, just from me in practice. Oh, Xylon goes real deep under brakes there. Be careful not to get a reset. Oh, and the rejoin. Oh, he ghosted there, so that was lucky for an in-game ghost. But that...
Oh, it just went a little bit too deep there, Xylon 96. I think he's trying to push that medium set to try and go, trying to run with the soft tyres there, because not being in the lead, he doesn't know his braking reference. He's trying to obviously copy what Ando does, but unfortunately for Xylon, it didn't work out. From 2nd to 5th, that's a harsh penalty.
Yeah, definitely a pure example of if you make one little tiny mistake here, it can definitely pay the price. So I wonder if Xylon might do an early pit stop now in regards to that. Chuck some softs on and then do a 2-stopper to the end. But as we know, lately Ando is very good with tyre management and all that kind of stuff. So the minimum laps at the moment is 6. So Xylon has to complete one more lap after this, and obviously that may come into play. Will he do a double soft? So we'll do a soft for 6 and then another another 5 or 4 laps. So that can be one that can play, because we do know he's got the speed, obviously, through qualifying. So that may be one to play. But we'll wait and see what happens here.
But because if he's on the medium tyres, I would try and see if I can run those tyres out for as long as I can, maybe till about lap 10. Because obviously I wouldn't see the guys like Ando or Nightwalker coming into the pits at the end of this lap, because judging by their tyre wear, it doesn't look too bad, especially for a Formula 2 spec car with about 569 horsepower and 700 kilograms in weight. Obviously the tyre wear isn't chewing up the cars. Obviously, the cars aren't chewing through their tyres as quickly as what we see in the main series at BOP at 639 horsepower and 660 kilograms. So maybe they might be able to make their softs last maybe a few extra laps here. So they want to try and maybe, if they can get to about lap 10 on their soft tyres, that'll be really good. But obviously, I think for Xylon, he just wants to run minimum laps on those soft tyres and have the freshest sets out of everyone whilst they're on medium tyres. But as we look to the split 2 here, as I will see how our boys are going, we have Gordok 69 still leading the way. He's got himself 14.3 seconds over Tormentor in second place. So there's a huge gap. Looks like I saw Warpath make a mistake there. And then we have Venti in third, Gator in fourth. Warpath has now just come into the pit lane, completing his minimum laps on the soft tyres. So he's going to go mediums to the end. We have Griffo in sixth place, and then we have Cowboy rounding up the rear, 42 seconds behind Gordok 69. So like I presume DJ Gordok is a fast driver, so obviously just rued his chances of getting himself into the top 6 in pre-qualifying.
Yeah, it's obviously a bit unfortunate there, but just as you were doing that, I was kind of flicking through the field, seeing who's on what tyre, but from what I can see, we've got Xylon, Lunacy, Robbo, Rusty, Brian, Flybalding, Slappers and Dean all on mediums. So the mediums have started to drop to the back, as we see currently, obviously by the live timing there. But Rusty and Slappers hasn't come in. So Rusty's jumped in for a set of softs. So 10 laps here. He's going to be looking for these softs, but I wonder how far up the field he's going to go.
Oh, he just gets a little bit too hard on those brakes there, as we see it. Now we cut to the battle pack between Lunacy and Aussie. So Lunacy knows that Aussie's got a penalty, a 1 second penalty hanging over his head. So I don't think Lunacy wants to make a move on Aussie just yet. Just sit right behind him, go through to Ascari, and just make sure you sit right behind his rear wing, because he will overtake him once he gets his penalty. But we know Lunacy as a smart driver, DJ, so obviously he's pacing the rain and pacing the dry. He knows what I guess we can't really say, we can't tell him what to do, because obviously he's a championship leader in Formula 2, so he's got it all under control, and he's about to make that move on Aussie for 6th place.
Yeah, exactly, and I was just looking at some live timing there, and he did lose time to Aussie down the straight, so it looks like he might be running that high downforce setup, as I was saying. Not quite getting too much top speed down the straight, but through the corners he is really making 2, 3, 4 tenths on the cars in front. So Nightwalker's coming to the pits now at the end of lap 7.
As Lunacy's in the pit. So Lunacy's getting off those mediums and trying to go 10 laps on the softs. I'm just not so sure, DJ. I don't know if these guys will be able to do 10 laps on the soft tyres. It is a big risk, because you play a big risk, as we see Roses go off there. So he's gone off. And well, unfortunately with GT7, again, not giving us the replay camera, we don't know what happened to Roses, whether it was a mistake or whether he got hit by somebody. But Roses, that's the second time this evening that he's had 2 big incidents, and he's all the way down in 7th place. So not what Roses wanted, as we see the 2 teammates in Dargs and Xylon 96. Obviously Dargs' softs are gone, and you can see that on the overhead, DJ. Look at those rears. Those rears are absolutely fried, and Dargs just wants to probably get into that pit lane. He's about 12 seconds behind Ando 787, and Dargs is going to lose a lot of time, especially to the drivers that he's fighting up against, especially the guys like Nightwalker. But I was going to say Roses, but after that mistake that Roses made, I think we're going to see a battle between Dargs and Nightwalker come the end of the race, and Xylon on very fresh soft tyres.
Yeah, definitely, and if I can't remember correctly, is Xylon on a wheel or is he on a controller?
He's on a wheel.
Yeah, so we do know
and Dargs is on a controller. So if we can see Ando's tyres compared to Dargs, as whether there's any significant difference between those two.
There's no real significant difference. It's very slight, but as we all know, controller v tire, controller v wheel, the tire wear is obviously increased on the controller. So that is probably the main downfall you have when it comes to using a controller. But when you're on a wheel, you can kind of manage that tire wear a bit more, which Ando seems to be doing here, and he's keeping a decent amount of gap to Zolan here, but I'd definitely be worried for Ando if I was him at the moment.
Oh, he goes a run a bit wide and he's gone off. And this is a trademark that we've seen with Ando over the past few rounds, DJ. Ando just gets a little bit too comfortable being in the lead there, and he just one slight lapse of concentration there puts him off there. We saw it at Spa and we saw it at Brands Hatch. So this is the third time in a row that Ando's made a huge mistake there. So nearly cost him there, nearly put him in the wall there. And I did say on our track guide that if you get one mistake on that AstroTurf, that right-hand side barrier is calling your name. But luckily for Ando, he managed to save that car.
Yeah, certainly that was a very hairy moment for me up here. But maybe that might be a telling tale for Ando to get off the softs. As he runs a real tight line through here.
Yeah, I think that's the pit lane calling his name now. Yep. So there you go. So Ando's now come into the pit lane. So finally he's off those tyres, and Xylon's tyres doesn't look too bad. So I wonder if he's going to go for one more lap. He's going to try and make sure he's going to try and get himself a bit of an overcut here, because he's got a lot of overtake, DJ. And I would say at least at the end of this lap, we might see Xylon come into the pit lane as we see Ando exiting the pit lane. Xylon's still ahead of Ando 787. How? And what is the gap between him and Nightwalker? Because I think that's the driver that he is racing up against. It's Nightwalker's coming towards turn 1. I think Ando is at the end of the De La Roggia, the Rettifilio corners in turns 1 and 2. So yeah, so he's now in Curva Grande. So he's about, what is that? About 6 seconds behind.
Yeah, about 5.5 behind. So. Yeah, this is definitely going to come into play. I'd definitely try the overcut here if I was Zolan. I'd jump in now, run those softs for the next 6-7 laps. So use as much overtake as you can, try and build that gap. Obviously waiting until Ando's mediums do come up to temperature, because for me personally, I think with this new tyre model, since all these hot fixes and stuff, the mediums are really kind of a bit of a pointless tyre. They've got it's like a very soft medium compound, where the hards are very hard. So the hards last 20 years and the mediums last maybe 3 or 4 laps longer than the softs. So it's a very odd one to choose. So I don't know what they've done on the PD side of things, but yeah, I think it's a bit of an odd one to try and manipulate, because obviously it's GT7 things as well. Keep an eye here on Xylon. Oh, he goes for another one. So this has to be his last lap, because he's only 6 laps in and he's about 7 laps to go. That is Xylon 96, so he needs to get off those tyres at the end of this lap. Hopefully he knows that it's only 6 laps for Formula 2. For main series, it is 9 laps for our main series drivers. So I'll be surprised to see how many drivers can make 9 straight laps on soft tyres. As we saw, even with Ando, he did 9 laps on his tyres, and you could see that he struggled massively. But now he's got his head down. Looks like those medium tyres have come up to temperature a little bit, 4.3 between him and Xylon 96 there, but it's a big gap. About 6.2 over Nightwalker there, so I think Xylon's going to slot in just behind Nightwalker 964 and ahead of Dark 74. So it's all up to Xylon with only 7 laps to go. Oh, sorry, 7 laps to go. Will he be able to latch onto the back of Nightwalker, and then especially latch onto the back of Ando 787? Only time will tell, but Xylon still leads the way with Ando and Nightwalker at the top 3. Lunacy has come through. Obviously, he's fresh on his soft tyres there. He's made a move on Rusty Nuts. We see Dark 74, obviously looks like he's made a bit of a mistake there, because he was up into 4th place, and looks like those medium tyres aren't working for him. As Aussie tries to make a move on the outside of Doug's, he gets himself into 6th place. So from 4th to 7th, not the start that Doug's wanted on this stint on medium tyres. But as we look to the front, will Xylon make that entry into the pit lane? He has to do it now or never. Yes, he does. He comes into the pit lane, so we've got to keep an eye on this, DJ. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it. I'm not too sure what the pit time is. It looks like it's roughly about 20 seconds. So I think he may slot in behind Nightwalker, just in front of Lunacy. So Lunacy is on the softs there, so maybe he might have played a bit of an undercut here. So keep an eye on
Xylon's come on now. And we're going to look out for Lunacy. There is Lunacy and there is Xylon 96, the two main contenders in this championship. Lunacy is going to be just behind Xylon 96. Yes, it is. But it was a great recovery drive by Lunacy there, DJ, starting from 9th and all the way up into 4th place. So he made that undercut work perfectly, but it's only going to be a telling time on when those soft tyres degrade, and they will be degrading very fast. And we'll see the likes of Rusty and Dargs and even Roses latch onto the back of Lunacy. So Lunacy has to do his best as Dargs gets himself a second penalty there, so must have cut the corner in the De La Roggia corners there in turns 1. And yeah, it looks like a 1 second penalty, just holding off Roses there. He looks like he's just gone ahead. And I think Roses looks like he's just about to make a move there. But as we see, around the outside on the Lesmo corners, I don't think that's a possibility there, because like that gravel is calling your name. But it's a good close pack here between for the drivers battling for 6th place there. So we'll keep an eye on that as the race goes on. But still, Ando leads the way ahead of Nightwalker. I want to try and see what that time is between Ando and Nightwalker and Xylon 96 actually.
It'd be 11.9, so he's pulled about a second and a half off Nightwalker this lap, pushing those softs. So he's definitely catching as Lunacy's there behind him, because the higher downforce setup gives you a lot more speed through the corners. But look at that time go just up and up and up for Xylon there. So he's pulled 2, 3, nearly 4 tenths on Lunacy coming out there up the main straight. So that's definitely something critical there that Lunacy may need to look at in the future for his tunes. But we know that his tunes currently have been pretty decent in that regard. But he's got 3.7 to Nightwalker there and 11.8 to Ando. So I wonder if he might have left it a little bit too long to jump on those softs. But he's gaining time. He still isn't going purple. So he's only on 2 tenths faster than his lap. So he's still on for a 31. So you want to hope those softs come up to temperature at the end of this lap, because if he doesn't start making some time on Ando, he's more or less not going to be able to catch him. Like we might have lost Spud there, but coming around here, we've got 4 laps remaining here for Ando 787, who's in the lead from Nightwalker 964 by 9 seconds. So Ando's got some decent pace on those mediums at the moment, but one man we want to keep an eye on here is Xylon 96.
So we've got, to apologise there. Yes, Xylon is catching up to Nightwalker massively, and he is catching Lunacy. He is bringing Lunacy with him. Sorry. Yeah, I think like what I was going to say is that because he's just 1 position ahead of Lunacy, that's obviously not. It's going to help a little bit with his championship fight with Lunacy, but I don't think Xylon wants to have Lunacy right behind him, because obviously, yes, he gains points on his championship rival, but not a lot. He wants to try and pull that gap. He wants to try and give himself a good, comfortable space between him and Lunacy to make any chance of trying to gain that, to claim that title for himself over his rival.
Yeah, he's, as you said, he's definitely bringing him with him. So they've got roughly about the same amount of overtake left. But I don't know here if Xylon's main aim is to try and catch Nightwalker, or to try and keep Lunacy behind him. Because as we know, Ando isn't in the championship fight. He's just obviously he can only do 5 rounds maximum. So I believe he's on his 4th, I think, for this year.
I think, yeah. I believe this one will be our 4th, his 4th round.
So he's got one more round. Yeah.
So he's still got himself a good 10-second gap there. So I don't think anyone's going to be challenging Ando tonight. So it's all going to be about this battle between the battle for 2nd place here. So Nightwalker ahead of Xylon and ahead of Lunacy. As we look down the field, we have Rusty Nuts in 5th, Roses in 6th, Robbo's come through into 7th place on those soft tyres. Darg's holding on to the top 8, just over the drivers like Aussie Hypnotic and drivers behind him. Soul Reaper in the top 10. Isuzu Brian has made himself a good recovery back into 11th place with Slappers after that lap 1 incident that he had and at the Rettifilio, at the De La Roggia corners in turns 4 and 5. Obviously down into 12th place, not the race that he wanted, with flyboarding in 6th Rugworth again. So this is another race for Rugworth where he's high up at the beginning and then just drops down to the back. And then our new driver and D DeBean in 15th place with a very nice NASCAR style formula car there, DJ, with the big numbers there. And as he goes for a 360 there, so good camera angle to catch that. But yeah, he's got like a very classic NASCAR style numbers there, so good for him to make an appearance in the F2 racing and obviously come through pre-qualifying, and he's done himself a very good job to be in the top 15 and obviously get himself some good points in at least with the drivers coming in. But we have Xylon in 3rd place. He's not actually gaining on Nightwalker here, so has he already fried his tyres up? And Lunacy's done a little bit of saving, but I think, as you said, I think Lunacy is running a little bit more downforce compared to Xylon. As we see, he just goes really wide on the parabolic corners, but I don't see Xylon really closing in on Nightwalker as he picks himself a half-second penalty. Obviously running too wide at Parabolica. There is a limit on how far you can go, and it looks like Lunacy has exposed that.
Yeah, he's definitely exposed that, but in regards to that, it looks like it may have been the reasoning behind his tyre wear. So he's got roughly about double the amount of tyre wear as Xylon, so I wouldn't be as confident as what I would be if I was Lunacy. So from what I can see, Xylon may get a P2 here, and if Lunacy's lucky and he can push through those high wearing softs, as I say that, he goes 0.13 faster, so he's still latching onto the back of Xylon. But with 1.5 laps to go, it's definitely going to be on like Donkey Kong, as they say, for position 2.
As Lunacy goes for a bit of an excursion there. He just saved it. My goodness, that right-hand barrier was calling his name, and how he saved that just basically did what Ando did. But what a save there by Lunacy, and that's not going to help. Obviously, Rusty is coming right at him, but I don't think Rusty's going to catch him at the end of this race here. So the only battle pack that we can see that is Nightwalker and Xylon 96 battling for 2nd place here. So for Xylon to try and get 2nd place over Nightwalker 964 will be a big bonus for him to put at least an extra car over him and Lunacy. He runs a bit wide. Jesus, that is, hold it there, Xylon. That was so close. Will he pick himself a half-second penalty from that? No, he won't. So very close to Xylon. He's got only less than a lap to do, DJ. Can he get Nightwalker? Can he get himself 2nd place as Ando runs away with this victory?
Yeah, I wouldn't class it out yet. The fat lady hasn't sung, so don't count anyone out yet at the moment. Obviously, we've seen from previous history being Monza, so keep an eye on Ando through the Lesmos. So he goes really nice there through Lesmo 1. Keep it neat and tidy through 2. Doesn't run too wide, so that's very nice job there. But Nightwalker also has a full tank of juice, and Xylon has about 2 millimeters. So Nightwalker really has the play up on Xylon here. He's got exactly the same amount of tyre wear, but also a full tank of juice. As Lunacy runs wide there, unfortunately Rusty Nuts isn't in contention there of a top 4, which is unfortunate. But Xylon around the outside. Oh, that's a nice move there, coming into a scurry there for Xylon onto the run on the back straight.
He's done the move on Nightwalker on the final lap around the outside of Ascari. What a move by Xylon 96 there. Great driving as we see Ando 787 take the checkered flag for the main Trackstars Formula 2. But what a move that was for Xylon 96. A crucial move for Xylon to be 2 places ahead of his rival in Lunacy in 4th place. But great driving by Xylon 96. Unfortunate to not get any compensation on trying to close the gap to Ando 787, but he gets the job done over his championship rival in Lunacy in 4th place. Honorable mention for Rusty Nuts in 5th place, with Roses in 6th, Robbo Sport in 7th place. So great recovery drive for Robbo in 7th, with Dark 74 in 8th place. Then we have Aussie Hypnotic rounding up the top 10, but my goodness, DJ, what a move.
Yeah, that was incredible there, coming into Ascari. I was too busy keeping note on Lunacy, and then I seen him going too wide. So I'm surprised Nightwalker didn't use any of his overtake. But maybe he just thought, I'm not in the championship, you go ahead, buddy, get some extra points there. So was that a bit of a play there on Nightwalker's behalf to let Xylon pass to get a couple of extra points on Lunacy? But that'll be one for the books of those guys. But
Absolutely. As we look down through the field, we've got Slappers in 12th place. In 13th place, we have Flyboarding coming across the start-finish straight, and then we have Rugworth rounding up 14th place with Dean. With the Dean in 15th place. I can never really say his name there. So Dean Tabine in 15th place there. So 15 drivers being classified this evening, but the winner is the one and only legendary, obviously, top driver in Ando 787, taking out the victory for round 8 of Trackstars Formula 2 here for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. What a race. No one can touch him at all. But once he made that move on Cylon 96 at the beginning on lap 6, obviously that became crucial for Ando's quest to take that win.
yeah, certainly. Obviously, you know as well as myself, if you get stuck behind there and you need that track position, it's definitely one thing you'd want over another driver that is fast. Obviously, as fast as what Zylan is. So good to see that Zylan closed the gap there, and obviously Ando taking out the win here at Italy, after having a few bad results lately. So it's good to see him take out that win. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I wonder what that'll do with the championship.
Yeah, so it's obviously crucial points. 300 for a win. So the big 300 goes to Ando. Obviously 270, I believe, it goes for second place, and for Lunacy in 4th. So he's got himself a 30 points gain over Lunacy there. So that'll close the gap slightly, but obviously not enough. But as I did say, drop rounds will come into effect at the end of round 10, and hopefully by that time we see a classic finish between Project One's Lunacy and Ultipack MSR's Cylon 96 there. So that is it for our coverage this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned for the main Formula Trackstars coming up in an hour and a quarter's time, where we will have Broccolilli streaming Formula Trackstars, where we see round 8 for the Italian Grand Prix. Can anyone stop the main man in Dishwood 1? Can anyone stop, I guess, I could say myself, because I'm still holding the championship lead and coming for you in second place there. So we've got ourselves a bit of a contest here this evening, DJ.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a contest, but also there has been 2 rounds that haven't been posted yet. So I wonder what that'll do with the shake-up in the championship. But we do have, I believe, Gaban's in 3rd at the moment. So
the surprise package out of everyone.
Yeah, exactly. But another person you kind of can't rule out is really anyone on the grid. But I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've been trying to give it to Woodsy as much as I could so far. So obviously taking the win at Brands and then getting second place at Spa, I've been close, but not close enough, obviously, because he was involved in contact at Brands Hatch. So it was a bit unfortunate there, but obviously you were right behind me at Spa. As well as Lunacy. So mate, can't rule out anyone. Obviously, I don't have good history here at Monza from the last year and anything, but I've got my teammates on my back and they're helping me around. And also, I've noticed that John's got a bit of pace at the moment, as well as Ridwan. So can't rule anybody out. But will anyone stop Dishwood 1 from taking out what would theoretically be his 5th win in a row, not including obviously any damages or penalties? So it's definitely going to be a very interesting one come 8 o'clock tonight.
Absolutely right. So we may see a new winner, just like we've seen in the real Formula 1 racing, that we see brand new winners taking victories in underdog teams, where we had Pierre Gasly in 2020, Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. So can anyone bring a surprise to the Formula Trackstars grid? We will find out in an hour and a quarter time. But on behalf of DJ and myself and Spud P666, we'll catch you guys